fun story begins with a scene showing a pregnant woman undergoing delivery, assisted by several doctors. After hours of labor, a baby emerges from her womb, but it looks completely like a larva. Within seconds, the baby dies. However, when the doctors examine further, they find another baby inside her. Fortunately, this one is completely normal, like any other baby. They deliver him safely. Sadly, they couldn't save the mother, as she was in extreme pain and passed away right there. The company where the woman worked had a boss who adopted her child. The baby was named Martin, and the boss provided him with excellent resources. A few days later, during a meeting, the boss's assistant told him something shocking about Martin. She said the child was growing at an abnormal rate, 10 times faster than a normal child. Not only that, his mental and physical development was also advancing rapidly. This was a very strange phenomenon, but the boss assumed Martin was a gifted child, God-gifted. Martin was shown to be extremely brilliant. Although just a year old, his body appeared to be that of a 5 to 10-year-old. He had already gained knowledge of everything inside the lab. In fact, at such a young age, he invented a device to communicate with insects, an invention even adults hadn't achieved. Because of his intelligence, the boss kept Martin in a lab to study and protect him. Martin even learned hacking and started unlocking all the lab's locked doors to explore other zones. One day, he saw a dog and quickly became friendly with it. They spent a lot of time together, communicating through the device Martin had built. One day, when Martin brought food for the dog, he discovered the dog missing. Searching everywhere, he wandered into a restricted area where experiments were underway. Through a mirror, he saw scientists placing the dog inside a teleportation machine that transferred objects from one chamber to another. The process began, and the dog was teleported. But its body and behavior changed drastically. It became aggressive and bit a scientist. Seeing the dog in this condition, Martin screamed in despair. Unfortunately, the dog had to be killed as it went out of control. The boss hugged Martin and told him he would soon understand the truth, but the time wasn't right yet. Years passed. Martin was now 5 years old, but looked like a 20 to 25-year-old man. The boss and his employees even celebrated Martin's birthday, making him very happy. The boss, who considered Martin his own son, took him to a new apartment and told him he no longer needed to stay in the lab. Martin was thrilled and excited. The boss also promised Martin a scientist's job at his company and took him to the teleportation machine. He showed Martin an experiment by teleporting an apple from one chamber to another. The apple transformed into atomic particles and appeared in the second chamber, but its structure was altered. They realized the machine needed improvements to prevent changes to objects during teleportation. The boss then revealed the truth about Martin's father, Seth, a renowned scientist who invented the teleportation concept. Though Seth couldn't resolve its core issue, his invention was revolutionary. The boss now asked Martin to analyze and perfect the teleportation machine. Hearing his father's name, Martin became emotional and began watching all DVDs related to Seth. He studied the machine's algorithms and working process, making changes wherever he found issues. After several days of hard work, he conducted a test, teleporting a telephone device. This time, the device remained unchanged, and Martin was thrilled to solve one major issue. Now it was time to experiment on living things. Martin was given this huge responsibility and was determined to do it perfectly. While working, he met a girl named Beth from his department. They shared similar interests and quickly became friends, bonding over experiences. Martin told Beth that he was only 5 years old, never slept, and didn't even feel sleepy. Beth didn't take him seriously, thinking he was joking. But for the first time, Martin fell asleep for a few hours after meeting Beth, an unknown change triggered by their connection. Later, a doctor tried to give Martin an injection, but the needle got stuck in his body and a lot of blood came out. Furious, Martin left without taking the injection. One day, Martin brought a cactus from Beth to show her his teleportation machine. He explained that any object placed in Chamber A would appear in Chamber B. To demonstrate, he teleported the cactus, but its structure changed drastically. He apologized to Beth, But now he faced a big question. Can living things be safely teleported? Martin and Beth grew closer, shared more, and even attended a dancing party together. The party was in a small apartment within their company campus. While exploring, Martin discovered the same dog used in the earlier experiment, still alive but in terrible condition, kept for further research. Seeing this broke Martin's heart. Angry and upset, he argued with Beth, who knew about the dog but never told him. Martin then returned to the lab and studied all the reports written by his father. It was clearly mentioned that for teleporting living beings, a complete DNA and atomic structure scan was required beforehand. Only then could a living object be teleported safely. Martin realized he wasn't normal like other children or humans. If he wanted to become ordinary, he would have to teleport together with another human being. But he didn't act on this yet. A few days later, Martin apologized to Beth and invited her to his lab. He wanted to show her the machine and prove that it was safe. He took her cat and placed it in the machine, promising nothing would go wrong this time. Just then, something magical happens. Because despite the teleportation process, the cat remained completely normal. There was no change in its structure or behavior. Seeing this, Martin became extremely happy. He had finally succeeded in teleporting a living being without any damage or mutation. This was a massive breakthrough. Beth was still scared, but seeing the cat was unharmed, she began to trust Martin's work more. Encouraged by this success, Martin continued experimenting with more small animals, each time carefully scanning their DNA and atomic structure, just as his father's research had instructed. Each time, the teleportation was successful. No structural or behavioral changes. Martin was finally ready to move to the next step, human teleportation. However, this brought a moral dilemma. Who would be the first human to undergo the teleportation? Martin began contemplating his own transformation. He remembered what he had learned earlier. If he teleports with another human, he might become normal like others, both physically and mentally. The thought was overwhelming, yet tempting. In the meantime, Beth had started to grow closer to Martin. She was fascinated not just by his intelligence, but by his kindness, his desire to help the dog, and his emotional depth. One day, while they were talking, Martin confessed everything. How he wasn't a normal child, how he never slept, how his growth was unnatural, and how he might become human only by teleporting with someone else. Beth listened in silence, then took a deep breath and said, "If you ever decide to go through with it, I'll be with you." Martin was stunned. He had never expected such support. But before he could think further, a critical incident occurred. Late one night, the company's lab was raided by an unknown group, possibly a rival organization or rogue scientists who had learned about the teleportation technology. Their goal was clear: steal the machine and capture Martin. They believed Martin himself was the key to understanding advanced evolution. Martin barely escaped using the teleportation device. He grabbed